That is reasonable.
Yeah.
We don't accept reasonable requests. Get out. Welcome back, Night's Watchmen, to episode 3 of the Cast in the Darkness podcast. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Clay.
And we're here with a special guest. But before we get to our special guest, I have some podcast news that I want to get through. We have been recording videos. I promise that we have. It's just, video editing software is hard, and I'm not good at it yet. So hopefully, by the new year, we should have the technology
completely done, yes.
To record these videos better, faster, stronger, etc., etc. Other than that, I think the podcast itself has been going well. We've been getting a few downloads every episode, although that could just be me. I don't know. We might as well get to it. We have a guest, as I mentioned before. It's another girl, which is so crazy. I've listened to a bunch of Game of Thrones podcasts, and our girl per episode ratio is way higher than anybody else's.
We are at 66% girl ratio.
We are at 66% girl per episode, and that's just unheard of. We're just going to have to make up for it with a bunch of sausage parties. So our guest is an old friend of ours. We all went to the same university. We all did nerdy things in university together. So our guest
Awkward.
This week is Tiffany. How about you say a little something about yourself?
Specifically what, other than this is going to be your cut.
This is going to be your
No, this is staying in.
Staying in. Okay, I'm obviously Tiffany. Hi. I met Matt many years ago because we're both freakishly old now. Especially Matt.
Some of us are maybe more freakishly than others.
Yep.
Some of us would be older than most of the characters on the show we're going to be discussing.
Yeah. That's kind of
awkward.
gross.
That is kind of gross and disgusting.
Oh well, we're going to keep it PG because I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
It needs to be PG.
Oh, right, okay, so this one's not going to have an explicit tag? Is that what you're suggesting?
Fuck bucket.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay, as long as you're not saying the bad things.
It's
that's
perfectly
right,
okay.
yeah. That's exactly what we're thinking.
So I'm going to have to curb my sailor's tongue. Basically, so
what got you into Game of Thrones?
what got me? Oh, honestly.
Oh, okay, we're going to go into the secret origin story. Fantastic.
Okay, we'll do that right away. Game of Thrones, I saw the first episode and thought it was absolutely fantastic, and then I had a book thrown at me by my boyfriend's friend. It's like, yeah, there's a book, and I know you like to read and junk, was exactly his words, because he's very eloquent.
You're one of them literates.
You're one of them literate people.
Pretty much. So I got into reading the book, and the first one, I don't know, it was my first real foray into reading fantasy, other than Lord of the Rings when I was 13, so...
Oh, and Lord of the Rings is such a bad book to read when you're that young.
No, it was fantastic.
Oh, no, you're wrong. You don't know. It's so long and tedious.
I read Lord of the Rings when I was in grade 6.
Well,
I had no clue. I had no clue what was going on. I love The Hobbit, though.
I don't remember how...
The Hobbit I didn't read till high school.
Yeah, I read The Hobbit in, grade 6.
I think I was 8 when my father made me read Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
wow.
That's young.
That's young.
Because he started working for Iron Crown Enterprises, which was a gaming company that produced like a Lord of the Rings card game.
Yeah, Middle-earth the Wizard's card game.
Exactly. And he started working for them as like a playtester and tournament organizer. And I was a nerdy. Well, I've always been nerdy, so I was already playing Magic at that point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. No, I was playing other stuff, though. And I think that he told me that if I wanted to get involved in this card game that he was going to work for, if I wanted to have any of the cards, I had to know what it was about. So I had to read Lord of the Rings. So I lied to him and told him, oh, yeah, I read that last year. And so he let me play the cards, and then I had no idea what the cards were about, so I had to read it anyway. So I kind of failed at not reading Lord of the Rings. But it was... I think I was too young. I think that may have been the issue. Is I was probably about 4 or 5 years too young to really like it.
My age of 12 was
probably
optimal.
fine.
Optimal, yeah.
I don't know about optimal. I think optimal is like 65 when you're in a home and nothing left to do, but think about walking again.
Oh no. It's an amazing story. You're just broken.
I may be broken, and it may be an excellent... Oh shit! I forgot to turn it to mute! That's the worst.
This is not happening all podcast again.
Okay, well I'll turn to vibrate because my father is going to call me at some point. So, alright. You didn't listen to the second episode, and, well, you certainly weren't here while we were recording it.
It all day. All day long.
8 different times I had to cut sugar peas out of the audio because there was a football game going at the same time, and my phone set to send me a notification every time there's, oh, see, it would have gone off again. Every time there was a score change or end of a quarter. So, I swear to God. And the Patriots scored a lot of points that game. Alright, so you were saying that your boyfriend's friend threw this book at you after you saw the first episode in, April 2011.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back then, and then it took a while to get into it because I wasn't used to the switching viewpoints and whatnot, and all the different names and.
No, the names. There's so many names.
So many names.
What? Who is this person? What? Now it's just like, oh, it's obviously blah blah.
Yeah. So, how many times have you read the books?
The books, I'm on attempt 4 now.
Okay,
you're kicking my ass.
I'm on 4 as well. I started Game of Thrones a few weeks ago, and I'm on the 4th time reading Game of Thrones. And the TV show, you've watched it at least twice?
Oh, it's been more than twice.
More than twice.
Yeah. It was
so
my bedtime stories for a little while.
Oh, that's adorable. That's like going to sleep to porn.
That's the funny thing is now you're going to listen to the second podcast and you're going to hate us.
Yeah.
So, the first time you saw episode 1 of the show, and this is what we in the industry call a callback, to an episode of the podcast you haven't heard yet, thankfully. What were your thoughts the first time you saw the show?
First time, I thought it was awesome. I really liked Ned. I'm like, oh my god, it's Boromir.
Okay, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah, you had a reference.
That's
point
reference.
there.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's Boromir. Yeah.
That.
Like, oh my god, it's the bad guy from GoldenEye.
There's the chick from 300. I know that person.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, Selena Headley.
Yeah. I knew the actor, so I was pretty pumped. And
I guess that's a fair point.
I guess that's what we missed during our podcast of the last time. Is we didn't like, oh look, these are all these exciting people. We're like, this is a terrible way to start this TV series. Who are these 3 characters?
I mean,
they're dead.
The introduction when they're in the woods, it's just kind of like, okay, so they're brought up and then they're not talked about for the rest of the episode.
They're not really brought up. Like, that story isn't brought up again for, 20 episodes.
No, it's brought up. Never mind. It's not brought up again until...
Like, the White Walker stuff doesn't really come about.
The White Walker doesn't come in until Craster's Keep.
Yeah. Easily.
Long time.
So that's like season 2.
Yeah. But, okay, so you were immediately in love.
Oh, yes.
Okay, but also, let's be clear, you are nerdy girl.
Very, very nerdy.
Yeah, you are already, kind of primed to like it.
I've already been playing World of Warcraft for years at this point, so...
So we've gone over your Game of Thrones origin. You started with the show, you read the books, you've completely, delved into... Have you been paying attention to, all the, fan blogs and stuff, or even, the prophecy write-ups and... There's a lot of internet depth that you can go into.
I've been trying to hide from that so I can form my own opinions.
That is reasonable.
Yeah.
We don't accept reasonable opinions. Get out. Yeah. So the topic of this podcast is going to be the graphic novel. So, did you want to maybe give us a brief blurb about the kinds of comic books that you've been into? And, how did you get into comic books?
Okay, so comic books probably happened with... Probably V for Vendetta was the first one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's awesome. So that, again, was kind of a movie link. Like, what do you mean this is based on real stuff? Because, all of our good ideas for movies are pretty much
already done.
Already done.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I just got distracted by something. This thing vibrated at me.
Yeah, you're not going to be super productive during this podcast, are you?
It's going to be bad.
Okay, so you're just going to be iPadding the whole time. It's like, oh my god, look at this thing.
No, it's this thing.
It vibrates and gives you good news?
I'm paying attention to the
Sure you are.
War Machine Weekend Invitational, and it's vibrating at me again.
Okay, so V for Vendetta, so the movie, like you were saying.
Honestly, it's been movies forever that got me into comics, and then, I moved away, so I didn't really have access to a good comic book store.
Well,
So-
let's argue whether or not you have access to a good comic book store here.
Oh, there are comics available. It's much better than, say, in Woodstock when I was in school.
That is fair. Although, to be fair, Woodstock, you're only like, what, 80 minutes away?
Yeah.
You can make that trip,
Yeah.
once a month and pick up a pile of books. You could, it's not
Although
really...
the really sad thing that got me into the weekly comics is incredibly dorky, and you're gonna laugh.
I'm sure I will.
I'm assuming you know where I'm going. It would be the My Little Ponies.
Of course it was. Every little girl. And
Well, I
about
thought of it-
30% of really creepy old men.
No, actually the brony community is very friendly. I've met this one guy, I think he's kind of crazy, but he has the nicest things to say all the time, and he's super friendly.
Yes, and he probably has an 8-year-old girl trapped in his closet, tied up, painted blue with sparkles.
There are no
With a tramp
sparkles,
stamp.
Thank you.
That's not true. Sparkle is a family name in My
Yeah,
Little Pony.
but
There are a bunch
they're
of
not
sparkles.
actually sparkly.
Well, they might not be actually sparkly, but they are sparkles.
See, you do know enough information.
I-
You know there is a surname of Sparkle.
He's totally a brony. He's just trying to hide it.
Yeah?
I have no comment. I will be cutting this part of the podcast out so that none of this will get into the public sphere. This could ruin my career
I
before it
can
takes
happily
off.
say nothing because I have no interest and was never obstructed to the My
That was
Little Pony
actually
craze.
Well, we saw, I was like, what do you mean this is a thing for adults? So we were like, well, it can't be that good. So we started watching, and then it's like, well, let's put on another. And then we just engulfed the first season, which is really bad.
It's just
It's
like,
really-
might as well watch another one.
Yeah, like we were on a like 4-hour plane flight down south.
Okay.
And we had them on our tablets, and we just sat there and watched the entire episode. There's a little kid behind me just leaning over my seat watching as we were watching our show.
That's adorable.
So literally, like, locked up in a plane, can't watch anything else, so might as well watch Little Pony. That's how you got...
I don't think in this case it's might as well. I think that they actively endeavored to have an opportunity to watch My Little Pony without being disturbed.
It's true.
Because if you're at home, the phone could ring, you could, have a fire in your apartment.
I'm just saying,
you're in a plane, sir.
there's no physical way you can get away from it. I am in this seat for the next 4 hours.
I am watching 12 episodes of My Little Pony come hell or high water.
Yes, but after that, once I bought that, the comic book guy's like, well, do you want something different to read? And that's when I started getting into Thor, which I absolutely love.
Thor, okay, see,
Thor
that's...
is fantastic.
I knew that you, I didn't really know about the My Little Pony, but I knew that you were a Thor person.
Yes.
Which I don't get, maybe, a little bit. I understand. Thor is a very interesting character, but he's not what you expect when someone says, I read comic books. Oh, what comic books do you read? I read Thor.
Well, I like the whole fantasy aspect of Thor. Like
the
whole,
Asgard stuff.
Yeah, the Asgard stuff. The part where it's like, oh, let's go team up with Spider-Man.
Verily, we must goeth unto Midgard
It's not written
and
like
teameth
that
up
so much.
with Captain America.
It's really not written like
No,
that.
it's not because it used to be.
In the newer stuff,
in
there's
the
the odd joke like
DC
that.
versus Marvel, it's that bad.
It's not that
Now,
bad.
who was that published by, though?
I can't remember.
Probably Marvel.
Probably Marvel. It is terrible.
I have a trouble getting past how handsome Thor is.
Yes.
You want to hear the sad story about my Batman?
Let's
the
have
only
it.
Batman books I own are written by Kevin Smith, and then Gotham
Okay,
by
so you have
Gaslight.
Cacophony and Widening Gyre?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then I have
love
Gotham
those.
by Gaslight. That's all I have for Batman.
Really? That's interesting. I can't judge or anything because it's not like I've read all the comic books and then just judged Batman to be the best. Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
I am who I am. But, I guess it was just that I was drawn to Batman for certain reasons, and other people are drawn to other characters for certain reasons, and Thor is perfectly reasonable. I wouldn't expect it. Even from a girl. I would expect more, I don't know, how sexist is it to say Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman is
I guess Thor's really pretty, so that makes sense. Like,
He
you
does
get
have long flowing
long flowing. He's probably prettier than Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
He might be the handsomest comic book character
The only
ever.
time I've liked Wonder Woman is in Flashpoint.
Oh, Flashpoint was good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
But that's the only time I've ever liked her.
Yeah.
You guys have
Lack
such-
of truth.
You two have such great comic book know how. Mine is very limited. Like my graphic novels is down to literally just a few. I mean, I got introduced to graphic novels through Bone.
Okay, sure.
Which is amazing, and then like otherwise that is the comic books I got into was Battle Chasers, and that only went for I think 5 comic books.
Yeah.
Because the guy kind of started another company.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's like very catch-22. Like I'll get one-off stuff like the 1812 comics, Romeo and Juliet: The War.
Okay,
I bought the shit out of that. But other than that, like I don't follow a series. It's more of just, hey, here's one sexy book.
But the interesting thing about that you were saying is that Tiffany and I, we're talking about like really mainstream comic books, let's be honest. Even V for Vendetta, for the most part, since the movie happened, it's very mainstream. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody knows Batman and Thor, especially since the last couple movies have happened. Like, Thor has just gone wild.
Yeah.
The first movie was
Thor's Gone Wild.
Thor's Gone Wild!
That would be my favorite porn ever.
Thor's Gone Wild.
Have you seen the new movie?
The Dark World? Yeah, we went to it like opening weekend. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. See, I'm not a Thor person.
No.
I thought the movie was enjoyable. I loved Kat Dennings. I thought she was hilarious.
Yeah, she always is.
But, I mean, yeah, and I really like Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Like, he's phenomenal.
Speaking of, do you follow Tom Hiddleston on Twitter?
I don't follow a lot of people on Twitter.
He is hilarious. There was a picture he put up on Twitter of him with Captain America's shield and Thor's hammer up in the air. And he's just screaming, and he's just like, and I sent a text to Chris, and I said, by the way, you're not getting them back.
Yeah.
I laughed my ass off when I saw that. It was wicked.
Oh. Alright, so the flavor of the week this week is going to be Game of Thrones, the graphic novel. Let's just, right here. It is written by Daniel Abraham with the art, sorry I choked on the word art there, by Tommy Patterson. I think the first thing that I wanted to discuss here is why do a graphic novel? The graphic novel, issue 1, was released in September of 2011, which is about 5 months after the release of episode 1 of Game of Thrones. And the first season had been done, and then issue 1 of Game of Thrones, the graphic novel, comes out that fall. And it doesn't even read like the show. It's just a direct adaptation of the book. So I'm wondering why you think this was a choice that they made at that point in the lifespan of Game of Thrones.
Well, I'm pretty sure he talked about it in the introduction, right? Because he's saying, well, I've always enjoyed the funny pages.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure is what he called it.
Well, I mean, he's like 100 years old.
Yeah.
So back then, it was just the funny pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something he's always been enjoying, and he frankly just loves giving things to his fans. Like, he's all about,
he's all about marketing.
Everything.
That's true.
Everything you could possibly ever want.
Except for book 6.
Except for book 6.
Well,
Except for another book.
The TV shows, so.
That's
which
one of
is
my
why
issues.
It's fantastic. It wouldn't be as good as it was.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the fact that he is involved in all of these different media related to his universe, it provides a lot of a sort of authenticity. Because it gives his stamp to these different media. It allows everything to just sort of interact in the same universe, I think. It also leads to an awful lot of anger among those among us who just want to read the fucking books. I want to know how it ends. I want to know if I'm right. I think I don't care how it ends. I want to know if I'm right.
Actually, that's the funny thing is I actually want the same. I want to know if I'm right.
Because I have so many theories about how this is going to end, and I am terrified that I'm never going to be vindicated.
Oh, he's gonna have it finished.
He's not. Brandon Sanderson is going to end up writing the 7th book of this series, because this poor old man is going to die of something in the next 5 years.
And book 7 is not going to be written.
You don't think he has it, like, pretty much done, sitting on his laptop going, I'm not going to
No, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have it done, because he said that before in many of his things, that he's literally, I wrote a chapter and I put it into the next book. And then he goes to the next book and I have 4 chapters written for the next book. And then he starts writing the next chapter and it's like, what? The last book out came out 4 years ago. What? What?
I think my issue with his writing is that he wrote very well and very quickly for the first 3 books.
Yes.
And then he got famous. The books blew up when Storm of Swords came out in the early 2000s. And he started doing book tours. And he started doing Comic-Con appearances. And he started doing, like, convention panels. And all these things, taking up all the time.
Giving all of his time to his fans.
And which is amazing. I mean, bravo to the man. He's found an audience and he's milking it for everything it's worth. But it's also taken him 12 years to put out 2 books, and we're still waiting on the 3rd book in that span, whereas it took him 6 years to write the first 3 books. Yeah. Maybe he just had a better framework for the first 3 books. They wrote themselves faster.
Well, you gotta think, how expensive is this universe now?
It's 2 continents.
I mean, frankly, he's gonna have to start killing more people if he wants it to fit into, like, a reasonable-sized book.
Yeah, but that's what he has dragons for.
Because, I mean, we haven't seen the little Stark there in how long?
Hey, Christina, you want to close that door? Kat's just...
I hate her.
They just ruined her character by casting her as a 50-year-old.
Yeah, because, I mean, she's supposed to be, like, what, my age?
28, yeah.
Yeah.
So...
And, like, Ned's 35, not 50. Ned's 35 looks like he's 40.
And did you take a look at the book and just take a look at the art for, like, Catelyn and Ned?
Yeah.
And just seeing that they're...
well, actually, Catelyn, I think she looks even younger. I think Catelyn looks like she's 20.
No, she's definitely older than that. Yeah. You're just talking about the nudie shot, right?
That picture right there, she looks like she's 20.
Yeah, but the artist just isn't very good.
It's not nice.
I apologize to this person I've never met before and will never meet again. But let's face it, in the first book, he's not very good. Mm-hmm. He has trouble with expression.
At least Ned looks like he should be that age.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I find that all the characters except for one look to be 8. Yeah. No, you're just looking at her boobs not duping at all. Duping? Drooping.
We're going to go with duping.
Her boobs aren't duping.
That's much more fun.
And probably less sexist.
A little less depressing to think about my inevitable future.
See, mine are still nice and perky. They're still quite firm. I'm 30. I think I've got it quite well off. I still don't need a bra, so that's amazing, right?
There you go.
Poof. I feel good with my A's. Every character in that book, except for... Okay, we're going to get into that after.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think my question about why doing a graphic novel has been answered. It's answered in the foreword to the book. Like, George R. R. Martin loves comic books. Yeah. And he loves the fans, and he wanted to provide them with just more ways to experience the universe and the story. And I personally find that the comic books represent the story, I mean, let's say in a different way from the show. But I appreciate the depth to the story in the comic books more. Like, that's the first 2 episodes of the show that you're holding in your hand right there. That's the length of a lot of comic books. Like, Kingdom Come is basically that length for the entire story. So they really go into a lot of depth.
Yeah, because I think this is like, the first quarter of the book, maybe?
Yeah, they're going to end up doing 4 hardcovers total, like 24 issues of the book for the first book, for Game of Thrones itself. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to see whether or not they have the energy and time to do the rest of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think the question then becomes a question of timing. I mean, it's possible that these books started coming out in 2011 because Game of Thrones became more mainstream. I mean, 2002, Storm of Swords came out, or 2000, Storm of Swords came out. People started reading the books more because there was something to read for.
Yeah.
Like, you read for the Red Wedding.
Yes.
And to a different extent, the Purple Wedding.
You definitely read for the Purple Wedding.
I read for the Purple Wedding, let's be honest. So, timing. Why do it alongside the TV show? It feels as though it might be splitting the audience a little bit because they're telling 2 different stories.
Not really. This is more true to the actual book, though. My theory is they're putting it out for people like my brother, who's like, a book? There's no pictures. I'll just watch the show.
Reading through the first chapter of it really kind of reads like the book, though.
It really does, absolutely. That's the one thing that I found amazing about it, was that They leave a lot of exposition out because you have to.
Yeah.
But the exposition is told by the pictures.
Yeah.
Whereas in the show, I found that the exposition is not told at all.
Yeah. And then they add extra exposition to explain things.
And
like
then
the
they
whole
add...
thing when the king came up is like, oh, they're, Sansa's there with Arya, and Arya's like, ooh, that's the king. It's like,
well,
obviously it's the king.
So I guess you're right. It was just to capitalize and to provide people who weren't ever going to read the books with a way to read the books.
Exactly.
Because if you're reading Game of Thrones, you probably know what a comic book is.
Likely.
If you're watching Game of Thrones, you probably know what a comic book is. Like, these are, like, the Venn diagram of people who watch Game of Thrones and people who know what comic books are. Probably close to a circle. Probably. So I'd say that's fair. I mean, getting...
Although because it's so mainstream now, you have all sorts of people involved that would never even think, like, what do you mean a book? What do you mean a comic book?
That's true, eh?
There are boobs on that screen.
This is America!
Yeah.
America!
No, we're not getting into that again.
Can we not do the shoot guns?
This is America. America, we shoot guns, we drink beer, and watch titties.
Shoot guns, drink beer, and watch titties. That's what it was, because no one reads. No one reads because it's America. And that's what it was. I couldn't remember the line.
But a comic book or a graphic novel, let's be respectful of the media. A graphic novel provides people who aren't literates with words on a page that they can
feel smart about.
That's right. It gives them a measure of, I don't know, I read the books, I'm as hip and I'm a Game of Thrones hipster too. I know what the words say. Because maybe it's just the Game of Thrones hipsters at this point that are reading the books. Because everybody else, the TV show and the books are telling different stories in a lot of respects. I mean, they're following the same overall arc, I say. But it's about the little things. And a lot of the little things are different.
Yes.
And it's not distracting, but it's not the same. And so I'd say that, the graphic novel provides people with an opportunity to experience it in a more authentic manner, I find, maybe. And that leads me to the second point here that I have here, which was the decision of the writer and the artist to do real adaptation of the story, rather than adapting it in the same way that Benioff and Weiss did. Because Benioff and Weiss were given the source material, and then they were just told to run with it. But the author and the artist of this book in particular, they said straight up in a thing that I read, I think I just read it yesterday, that they chose specifically to do a page of text per page of comic book. And yeah, I know you're looking at me like I've gone crazy, but
that's insane.
It's not like 1-to-1 specifically because some pages are shorter than others. Like starts of chapters are shorter.
Yeah.
But it mostly correlates the number of pages per story in the book correlates to the number of pages per story in the graphic novel. And I mean, they can't tell the story with the words, so they just use, the art to tell those parts of the story that they feel the art can tell. And they do a really great job of that. I'm wondering whether or not... How do I want to put this? Whether or not you feel as though one tells the story better than the other.
Versus the TV show?
Yeah. I mean, an adaptation versus an interpretation.
I don't really know if I can answer that. Because, I mean, there's some things that the TV show does a lot better than the comic book does, but then you get so many more pretty words with the comic book.
I would contest that there are very few things the TV show does better than a graphic novel.
No.
The music, maybe.
Yeah, the music, obviously. But
music's pretty epic.
I don't know. For instance, in this, when I'm flipping through, and they switch character viewpoints, it's like, what just happened? As you pointed out, the faces aren't exactly the best. So I was like, oh, these people look slightly different.
Yeah, actually, I just noticed that. They're just shocked. Just go from this scene to, oh my god, you're across the sea.
Yeah,
so that is true. That is the one thing.
That is actually very jarring. I didn't notice that before when I was flipping through.
The transitions between scenes, because they always have, the narration, like the written pentos across the narrow sea or whatever, telling you where the scene is taking place, which doesn't happen here, which they could very easily have done.
They should have.
I agree. I think that's true.
Seeing meeting Khal Drogo.
He's
immediate cut.
No, that's the end of the book.
Yeah,
that's the end of the book. This is the start of issue.
Oh, issue 2. Fine then.
Okay.
I'm looking at this not as a comic book, as a graphic novel.
No, you're reading it as a book. That's true.
Yeah.
But they do take the time to split up by issue. So at the very least, they tell you when a new book is starting.
That being said, I would buy the shit out of that comic
is some
book.
nice art.
Because that is a nice cover art.
Yeah, the cover art for all of them is pretty much amazing. The art for issue 6, I think, is also fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it gets way better as the series goes.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, Patterson gets better at his weak points the whole way through. Like, even from book 1 to book 2 to book 3, the faces are less
cartoony,
rigid, and similar. That's nice art. That's not the one I'm talking about, though.
She doesn't look like she's 14 in
this is the one character that I am saying that they didn't age appropriately, and they address it actually. The author
it would have been
says
creepy.
that
extremely creepy because you have this
she's
scene.
13.
It was the main challenge of writing the book. It wasn't, dealing with the timing issues of the TV show or adapting the.
It was not getting
It wasn't
slapped
the
with
length.
child pornography.
It was not getting slapped with child pornography lawsuits. Because if you're raping a girl with the 13-year-old girl with a 30-year-old man, that's really bad.
Yeah, it is literally that scene right there.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And
then there's a scene later on where the one right before she gets pregnant, that is just as obviously sexual.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to make her at least 18.
Yeah. Otherwise,
You just have to suspend disbelief, I guess, a little bit when you're talking about the Dany storyline, at least up to the point where she catches up to her age.
Yeah.
That's really awkward hugging.
I like that you're looking at a thing and making commentary without actually providing any context. The other people that are listening to it that aren't the three of us, who I think are the 3 people that actually listen to the podcast, the other 2 or 3 people out there aren't going to understand that you're pointing at a picture of a person. They're just going to hear your voice saying, that's really awkward.
As a side note, I enjoy your voice for him.
Apparently my voice is amazing.
Well, I think it changes every week, but that right there, that is gorgeous.
That is beautiful.
That is pretty.
Like all of the art.
All the cover art is amazing. I wonder if Patterson actually did them.
I don't think they had anyone else.
I don't think they did
him.
either. I was just a needless slate.
Yeah.
Okay, so
some of the artwork, like the picture of the draft you see, is kind of pretty actually.
The backgrounds are just phenomenal.
Third point that I had that I was interested in talking about was the art, which we've kind of already gotten into. And let's start with some real talk. Those faces are awful.
Yes.
Like, the scene where Bobby B and Eddie Stark are in the catacombs, and Robert says, Eddard Stark, I'd make you the hand of the king. And it's just this one panel with a close-up of his face, like and he's like got this really creepy smile and a big old...
What's this at?
Oh,
it's towards the beginning.
Yeah, it's after they arrive and they're talking in the catacombs. Right here.
Yeah, it's like right there.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Like, look at that. That is adorable, right? It's maybe the worst. And he's so stoned. Look at those eyes.
He is plastered.
Yeah.
He
is just... to be fair,
he might... red nose.
He might actually be plastered.
He might actually be drunk. Even that one's creepy.
I find all of his expressions...
glazed over at.
Well,
my
issue with the faces
is that even these ones. Look at these.
They only had 2 expressions over the first few books. They were grimacing or they were smiling, and there was really nothing in between. Sometimes the characters shouldn't be smiling, but they shouldn't be grimacing, and there should just be something else.
Blank face.
Yeah, couldn't you just be upset without scowling?
I kind of like other things about it. Like, I like, for instance, what they actually included what his sister looks like.
That's right. They actually and that was one of the things that I was going to bring up later, but let's go ahead and do it now. The very first Dany segment, where they do those 6 panels describing the history of
that was
of like the rebellion and then her personal history after they leave Dragonstone. That's the thing that was missing from the TV show.
From the episode 1 of the TV
It's
show.
Was there was no context provided for why these characters are doing these things.
Yeah.
And even here, like, they just have one small panel with Liana. And it's just, you know, the only thing she says throughout the entirety of the book series, promise me, Ned, promise me, Ned. But it provides you with sort of an appreciation for the thing that Ned went through at the Tower of Joy in order to find her, and then in order to, you know, comfort her during her last moments. You get a sense through this one panel of the pain that he feels, where you don't really ever get that until he's in the black cells right before he's about to be executed, and he's thinking about the Tower of Joy and what's going on, but you never actually go there. Okay, the next point that I had was I wanted to talk about the choices that they made in the story. Talking about where each issue ends, the decision to write it out a page per page of text, and whether or not we feel as though there are pieces missing to the story still, or if that's enough to tell the story big enough to capture Game of Thrones.
I don't know. I find they're kind of hit and miss on that. It's like I said before with the whole jumping perspectives. It's like I didn't know that changed. At the very least, put a little heading like you're in Pentos.
Meanwhile,
like over in Danny's planet.
Meanwhile, at Arkham Asylum.
But I mean, they did other things really, really well with the storytelling. Like, for instance, watching the TV show, you don't really get the whole sense that Jon Snow and Arya are like buddy.
That's true.
But
you don't
through the book, it's like, oh my god, there's actually in a relationship.
Well, they're not in a relationship.
No, but like there's a brother-sister.
Yeah, they truly love one another.
Exactly.
Like, he's a part of the family for everybody except for the two Tullys.
Terrible.
His, you know...
Except for the two Tullys?
The two Tullys.
So basically,
Catelyn and Sansa.
I hate Sansa. God, like every time I read a chapter, he just grimaces and go, God, more flowers.
More flowers.
Oh, stop.
I deal with it because I'm
Tyrion
pretty sure I got figured out how important Sansa is. So.
Well, she is important.
Her
Her story gets cool-ish, if for nothing else, then it involves other people that are cool.
Yeah, I think her story's going to get better, but that's just me.
My issue is I found out this week that the thing I want to happen can't happen.
What?
Because I didn't realize that the Hound was actually dead. I thought he was just dead. You know, in the same way that everybody's dead in that story. But I was reading through, and like there's a chapter, a Brienne chapter, where she's talking to a maester or a septon or whatever, and he literally buried him in the ground.
Oh, right, I remember that.
And I'm like, oh no, that means that the thing I want to have happen can't happen, because I was so in love with the idea that the Hound comes and rescues Sansa from...
No, that would have been sweet.
That's right? And then takes her back to King's Landing where she can meet Egg. You know, and then eventually, you know, then we have some pretty ginger babies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that can't happen. So I don't know how she's going to get back to King's Landing. But I'm pretty confident that she's going to end up back in King's Landing with Egg.
I'm hoping she, follows the Stark rule and just dies.
But she's not a Stark, she's a Tully.
As an aside, in this thing, speaking of Arya, I re-watching Season 3 reminded me how much I liked Arya's storyline when she was in Harrenhal, when she was serving for Tywin.
Yeah, that was actually a really nice addition.
That add-on for their relationship in that area is really, really cool.
That part is better in the show than the book. Absolutely.
That part is, their relationship in the show is awesome.
Like, I don't know, I feel really bad for poor Reek.
I so don't.
Ramsay and his sausage.
I don't feel bad for Reek at all because he kind of has it coming.
Does, but I mean, you gotta feel a little bit of...
No.
A little bit of pain.
Pork sausage.
Feel bad for... No. I don't think you have to feel bad for him. He kidnapped and murdered his own little brothers.
Yeah, the equivalent of his little brothers.
Yeah.
And
then, he was captured and he's been tortured and he's being transformed.
You also got to keep in mind, he's what, like 16, 17?
I think he's 19 in the books.
19 in the books.
Yes.
19 in the books. He's older in the books.
He's old in the books.
Yeah.
He's ready to die.
Yeah, he's ready to die. Shadow of death.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not so young that he should be that stupid. I think
I don't think you remember what it's like to be 19.
I think that you don't know what it's like to be 19 in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
Because if you were 19 in the Middle Ages, you would already be a grandmother.
I'm sorry, 19 in the Middle Ages, yeah, you've probably at least gone to one war.
Not her. She'd be on her third husband, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a plethora of children.
Let's face it, Marjorie Tyrell was going to be on her third husband, and she's only 16.
It's true.
And this husband's like
And this
7.
husband is 7.
I'm so glad they casted him older. That would have been creepy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep,
Oh,
he's
man.
looks like he's at least 12 now.
Okay, so we've talked about whether or not we feel as though there are pieces missing to the story, and I mean it's mostly just the extra stuff that they could have done, like the little things that they could have done. Whereas in the show, a lot of it is it's bigger stuff. They do the little things very well, but the big overarching stuff tends to be missing, like actually explaining who these characters are.
Yeah,
they don't do a good job of explaining who the characters are. But they do an excellent job of having Tywin Lannister and Arya Stark have a bit of a tete-a-tete.
Yeah.
Like, they do a much better job of dialogue than either the book or the graphic novel, because the dialogue is secondary in either of those two media.
It's true.
Whereas in the show, it tends to be the way the story advances.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, you think of the show, was it the season 2 opener? Or was it I think it might have been season 3 opener, where they're introducing the Red Woman.
That would be season 2.
Yes, is it season? Can't remember.
Yeah, because she's there from the start of the Stannis storyline.
Yeah. So, like, when they're introducing those people, the entire time my boyfriend and brother looking at me, he's like, who are those?
Yeah.
And it just, they don't go into it. It's like, okay, well, there's a Red Woman. What's the Red Woman from? Why is she sitting?
And I mean, you can't just say, oh, she's from Ashai, she's a priestess of the Red God Roller, because none of those words mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
None
of them. They just say the Red God.
I just basically said, there's like, she's important later, so pay attention now.
That's all I was really able to do, too.
So far in the show. And
then the issue comes about the fact that everybody on Dragonstone looks the same again.
Yeah.
So, like, telling Stannis from Davos, from anybody of adult male age, you can't really tell them apart unless they actually address them with their names, which they do fairly rarely.
Yeah.
So there was actually the scene after Davos gets put in the cells underneath when he, like, is traitor or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, like, Christina looked at me and she's like, why did they put the king in jail? And I'm like, well, I understand how you get there because he just looks like Stannis with a beard.
Yeah, but he's not.
But not quite. And then I was like, no, that's Davos, that's the other guy. She's like, I don't know these names. And I'm like, I know, it's okay. You don't need to know the names. They're all going to be dead eventually.
Like, my buddy doesn't know any of the names. He's like, yeah, bratty kid over there, and Dragon Lady, and, like, he has nicknames for
Ginger
all
Stark,
of them.
Badass Stark.
Yeah, Ginger Stark, Badass Stark, go.
Yeah.
Although he knows Snow.
The only name that anybody knows is Snow. To be fair, Jon Snow is the only ubiquitous character.
Probably because you Grit calls him Jon Snow every 2 seconds.
That's true. They actually tell you his name over and over again.
Every 2 it's literally every 2 seconds.
And it's
what are you doing, Jon Snow?
It's the easiest name. It's the most English name, too. Like, you know, Dany is arguably a more ubiquitous character than Jon Snow.
Yeah.
But Daenerys Targaryen is not...
I don't think I've ever called her by her actual name. It's always been Dany.
Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, you could call her Daenerys Targaryen, but Jon Snow just rolls off the tongue way better. So if you're gonna know anybody's name...
very white.
Yeah, it's true, eh?
Yeah.
The last point that I wanted to discuss about the graphic novel specifically was the characters and the way that they're being represented in the show. And whether or not we feel as though they're being treated fairly by the graphical representation, whether or not they're getting enough airtime sort of thing, as it compares to either the book or the show. And I think that the most important thing to note here is that unlike in the show, Cersei gets 2 or 3 lines. Yeah. Throughout the entirety of the first volume of the book. Cersei says, do you really think that you should go down there? You've ridden all day when Robb and Ed are headed down to the crypts. and then she's
and then there's
talking with Jamie.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's pretty much it. Like they're talking a little bit on the way down to
on the road.
On the way to road, like when she's arguing that Nymeria should be put to death or whatever.
Yeah.
But she gets relatively little airtime in the books as compared to the show. I think it probably has something to do with having to afford the actress, and so having to put her in a certain number of episodes and a certain number of scenes per episode. But what do we feel about how the characters... Let's start with how the characters are drawn.
Yeah, so, like, basically with how they're drawn, I like that they look different from the show, but in other cases, it's like, oh my god, I think they must have just casted that person perfectly. Like, who was it? The Spider. The Spider looks almost identical.
Oh, yeah, Varys. Absolutely. It's true. I mean, but that might even just be more... telling about how great Martin was at describing the character in the books. Too. Because, the way he's drawn and the way the actor looks and acts, it's pitch perfect. And in both cases, I always found that Varys, more than a lot of the characters in King's Landing, really felt like the character that was in the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's, like, spot on in both mediums, I find. Like, in this particular medium, I don't like the imp.
No, Tyrion, you're not a big fan?
I'm not a fan of him, although I know he's more true because he's got the different colored eyes. And
I mean, he's got the acrobat skills.
He's got all that going for him, but I mean, I can't get Peter Dinklage out of my mind.
Absolutely.
He
is
the imp in my
good
mind.
at it, though.
Yeah, he defines that character in a lot of respects. And that's kind of a shame that they have such an excellent actor who is so definitive that it's hard to look past that. Even when you read the books, Tyrion Lannister, you picture Peter Dinklage. Even though the character of Tyrion Lannister in the books is completely different from the Tyrion Lannister from the show, it doesn't matter. You just picture...
He's fantastic.
Picture Peter Dinklage doing some flips in the air, I guess.
I think he should do flips on the show.
I think that would be fantastic. Purple Wedding, come on, go. Midget wrestling, or midget jousting, come on.
I'm so excited for the Purple Wedding.
It's going to be the greatest thing that happened to me since gluten-free bread.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
It's really fun playing that game of how do you think he's going to die, because I already ruined it and said he was going to die.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I've ruined that for several people. He's like, well, I think it's going to be this. Like, you're wrong. You're so wrong, but it's cute that you're trying.
The ghost of Eddard Stark is going to rise up from some unknown tomb and just swing a giant broadsword and take his head off. Like a White Walker.
That's what I should say to them.
That would be good too, eh?
That'd be badass instead of choking on pie.
Speaking of White Walkers, how do you feel about how they depict them in this?
I prefer the White Walkers in this than the White Walkers in the show.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's
I don't like that they're just giant zombies.
Still not what I pictured. In the show, I don't like them. This is more like a fae.
Yeah.
Like a crazy elf thing. I'm like, that's kind of cool. At least they got the one side of it right. This is like a muscly, half-naked man.
Yeah.
In the books, they're described as wearing white armor that shimmers, and you can't actually tell where the armor ends.
Yeah.
Between the trees, that kind of idea. So they're actually an imposing, armored individual in the books. In this, they're a muscly, half-naked man. And in the TV show, they're a half-naked black thing with really green or blue glowing eyes.
Well, in the show, they're just giant zombies.
Oh, I mean, I'm talking like in the scene in the show.
Yeah.
This scene in the show, they're just black.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
They're just black with a really, really pointy sword.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't even know what I was picturing when I was reading. I just know nothing has gotten it right yet. It's not what I visualized.
The original thing that I saw of was just white armored individuals with long black cloaks. Was the original picture I saw of the others. And just this imposing force that just methodically kills Waymar Royce.
Yeah, that's fair, eh?
Yeah, just methodically defends him and then breaks his sword and then just they all gather around and they also walk. Kind of like, I think the closest thing is the methodical movements in the Lord of the Rings movies that the Nazgul do. Just this unnatural movement.
So white armored
Honestly,
Nazgul.
Yeah,
White armored
I think
Nazgul.
that is more along the lines of what I was picturing.
That's fair, absolutely. That's reasonable.
Yeah,
I can get behind that.
like they said, but that whole the unnatural motion of them stabbing into the pillows in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but
That's
that
what
would
I
be
see.
more what I pictured when I was reading the book, probably because I've seen that movie a zillion times.
And until that time, that's what I see when I see that movie.
It's really frustrating. The scene's completely different from the show.
Mm.
And that's
Yeah,
really
but I hated that scene in the show.
I hated the scene in the show as well. They killed the wrong
That's the
person.
big issue, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that for the most part, the characters are treated with the respect that they're due. I mean, there aren't any Cersei chapters in the first half of the first book, pretty much.
Goodness.
There aren't really any big scenes where she has these long diatribes that she had in the first episode of season 1.
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't get a lot of airtime in this first volume because she isn't really there, because the first book is the Stark book. So the Starks get the majority of the airtime. Whereas in the show, they felt as though they had to do it a bit more evenly. A couple Dany scenes, a couple of Cersei scenes, and then a couple of Stark scenes.
So they do that with Joffrey as well. Because, Joffrey gets credited for way more lines in the show than he actually gets in the book.
Oh, absolutely. He's kind of barely in the books up until the second one.
You know that he's this prissy little...
Yeah. And he's more described than
more,
acted.
He's more described as being this little terrible child.
Yeah, he
That's-
just has a hissy fit.
It depends on who's talking, though.
Hissy.
Because if it's a Sansa chapter, he's described as being a gallant knight and being, you know...
Yeah, but in other chances, he's described as being a terrible child who tortures cats.
Well, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And then when he's fighting with Rob and John in the courtyard, and he's like, "Oh, I'm done playing with these wooden swords. These are games for children." Even though he's 2 years younger than Rob and John, he just treats them with such condescension and no respect at all, just because he's the crown prince.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's just a little dick. But
And we're all excited to watch him die.
The TV show does a better job making
Spoiler
you
alert.
hate him.
it's true. The TV show does a much better job of making you hate him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The TV, they've been playing it up so hard that they better pay it off.
They better pay it off. It better be epic. And
If he doesn't turn purple, I'm gonna be so fucking pissed.
It's so funny.
It's gonna be so good.
It's gonna be awesome.
I can't wait.
everyone's all...
Episode 2.
That's the thing.
Is that 2?
Episode 2.
Okay.
Episode 2 is the Purple Wedding?
Yeah.
So that's right. Second week in April?
It'll be, because it's gonna be the 30th of March is the first one, so the 6th of April.
Awesome.
Super excited.
Yeah.
6th of April, everyone.
I'm gonna sit there and laugh with my brother.
It's going to be awesome.
Oh, I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I've gotten some
They're-
pretty wild theories from my Unsullied, as you call them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From your personal Unsullied.
Yeah, they're...
Oh, you have your personal Unsullied,
I
huh?
do. I do.
That's
I'm fortunate like
adorable.
That's adorable.
So that
He's
is...
badass, by the way.
He's pretty solid.
Anybody who can use a spear in close quarters fighting is badass.
And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about the characters was the way they represented the ages of the characters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of touched on that already with the Dany thing and then the Catelyn thing. How they... I mean, let's be honest. Dany and Catelyn kind of look like they're the same age in the comic book.
They do.
Dany looks a little younger because she's more naive. She's drawn with a bit of more of a slack jaw, so to speak.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Catelyn is drawn like a early 20-something, and Dany's drawn like a late teen-something.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's...
That being said, that gives you some good growth in the character. Because in the beginning,
Yeah.
growth in the
good
characters.
growth in the character is you can...
Because they both have enormous growth.
Enormous growth. You can draw the character in the beginning as being a slack-jawed, naive girl.
Yeah.
And then you can harden the jawline for when she becomes a queen.
That's fair.
So you can visually see that growth extremely well. And it's just a simple thing is just how she's portrayed. So
No, absolutely. No, and I agree completely. Like, right there.
Yeah,
I mean, she's just kind of very young and innocent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Finally, I just wanted to give, everybody an opportunity to just mention anything in particular that they wanted to bring up about the graphic novel. I see that you have a lot of tabs.
Yeah.
And, I was wondering whether or not there was anything in particular that you felt important to mention that we probably left out of our conversation.
Honestly, the one thing I really like about this is the fact that they actually bring apart Catelyn. Like, Catelyn is not the, perfect, noble, whatever that she is in the TV show. You actually kind of see, she pushes Ned into it. She is the reason he's dead. If it weren't for her, this whole second war and whatnot wouldn't have happened because she's a terrible person. And I feel that doesn't come across on the show.
No, absolutely. I mean, in the show, I feel that they made a conscious choice to make Catelyn very selfish.
They do.
They wanted her in the show to try and convince him to stay, whereas Honor, required that he go down to King's Landing and become Hand of the King. Whereas even in the books and the graphic novel, it's the opposite. Like, Ned doesn't want to go, but Catelyn makes him go. Because, House Tully's words are family, duty, honor. And it is his duty and honor to go down there and serve the king in whatever function he desires. I feel as though this is a better representation of the character as it, relates to the books. Because in the books, all this shit is her fault too.
Yes.
And in the show, you don't really get that.
No, you really don't. Like, it's just, it's Ned's fault for being so noble.
For being such a dumbass and noble fellow. Like, noble to a fault.
Yes.
And then he takes an arrow to the knee, and everything just falls apart around him.
Oh, that has to be get cut.
It might. Well, it wouldn't if you didn't reference it.
You reference it takes an arrow to the knee.
Okay,
A
so...
sword to the tendon.
Well,
it was a spear to the back of the leg.
Spear to the tendon.
Spear to the back of the leg, people. Come on.
Oh, yeah, our bad. Alright, so, yes, I feel as though the difference in Catelyn's character is enormous between the show and the books. And that's one of the choices that I feel as though they made in error when they were doing the show, is I don't get it. I don't get Catelyn in the show.
Maybe they're just making her so you didn't like her, so when she died, you're like, meh.
It doesn't seem to really work, though, does it?
Nope, it's kind of counterintuitive.
It's super counterintuitive, because you should care about a character. Honestly, I didn't really care about Catelyn anyway. Not much. Her character actually becomes way more interesting after she dies.
Yes, she does.
It's true.
So it's... Excuse me. Just a question of, I guess, what it was that they were trying to accomplish with changing her character in that respect. I feel as though the graphic novel is just way more honest about the book. And I guess in a lot of ways, it really shines a light on the things that the show does differently. Even in a way that the book might not, because the book you have to power through 400 pages. Or whatever it is in order to just get through those 10 hours of TV. A lot easier to watch 10 hours of TV than read 400 pages of a book. Mm-hmm. When, they're really, really thick pages too.
Yes.
So I feel as though the graphic novel is able to shine a better light on that because it's not quite as thick. It's not as dense. And the pictures tell most of the story. What?
807.
Oh, 800 pages. Well, that's more.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure, I think Storm of Swords... There's Storm of Swords or a Clash thing. I think Storm of Swords is the tome at 1100 and some odd.
Okay, Dance with Dragons is thicker than almost 3 of them combined, though.
Yes, Dance with Dragons is
like 1,400 pages or something.
See, I don't have that in actual physical copy. I just have it on my e-reader.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't really understand the depth of the amount that I'm reading.
That's fair. But when you get past 10 or 15 chapters and it says you're 1% complete, does that not give you a hint?
That's true. That did.
Yeah.
1% complete.
This is going to take forever.
Yeah, through chapter 15.
Oh, no,
1% complete.
That was right on the beach in St. Kitts.
Oh, there you go. That's not so bad.
That's awesome.
It was lovely.
So you mentioned, the differences in characters between the show and the graphic novel. Was there anything else in particular that you feel, is worth discussing?
Well, Sir Roderick's way more badass in this than he is on the show.
Yes, I agree. I mean, Sir Roderick is just a caricature, really, on the show. Mm-hmm. He doesn't actually do anything, and I don't know, he's just not... He's not a very useful character on the show.
No, he's not really not. And you don't get that he is... What is it? Their castle?
Master at Arms.
Yeah, their Master at Arms. You don't get that he's important. He's just kind of there.
Yeah, he just exists alongside the rest of these people at Winterfell.
Yeah.
I mean, even when they do the scene... I think they actually skip that scene. I don't think they actually do the scene where Joffrey and the boys are training in the yard.
Nope.
I think that they...
It's not in the scene there.
And when they do...
Is it?
No, I mean in the show.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a scene in the graphic novel where they're training in the yard.
Yeah.
It's not in the show.
It's... No. So the only thing they do with the training is when they're shooting the arrow.
And Roderick Cassell isn't even there for that scene.
So you don't
You'd think that he would be there since he's the one in charge of training.
Oh, yeah, they are doing something here.
Yeah.
They are training. It's just these two.
Because John's not there. He's not
right, yeah, because he's not allowed to... bastard swords aren't allowed to bruise princes' bodies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a thing that... they miss out on a lot of potential in the show because they have to fit that number of pages into 52 minutes of television. Mm-hmm. And it's just very difficult to get all of the things in. If only they didn't limit themselves to 10 episodes, I think they could have done a whole lot more.
You could have easily done 24. The amount of story he's provided.
Just imagine how expensive those DVD box sets would be, though.
But it would be so worth it.
$200 DVD box set, season 1 of Game of Thrones.
Take
all my money!
I was really expecting them to come out with the
extended edition?
Yeah, extended, whatever. Here is 60,000 hours of Game of Thrones. Enjoy!
Oh, it'd be awesome.
And the other thing I find it does really good is it builds relationships a lot better. We already talked about Jon
and Arya.
Arya, but you've also got Jon and the Imp.
That's true, yes.
Yeah, because you don't really get that feeling
in the show. Not at all.
Yeah, we made mention of that before. You don't get that line, not all bastards need be dwarves.
Yeah.
Which is...
Pretty good.
Which is an important lesson to teach him, because that's what sets him on his path towards leadership in the Night's Watch.
Yeah, and then you get all of the lessons while he's on the road and the lessons in the Night's Watch. You get the one on the road when they're traveling.
Yeah.
About the books sharpen the mind as a whetstone sharpens a blade.
But you don't really get that they're friends.
You don't get the friendship that they have at the end of the Tyrion's time in the North when he leaves. You don't get that friendship. Which would be interesting when he comes back.
Or maybe it doesn't matter. For the show. For the purposes of the show, maybe it doesn't matter because maybe that's just something else that can all be left on the cutting room floor.
But I feel it's going to come into play in the later seasons, though.
I think it is, too. When
they're
all riding their dragons.
When they're all riding the dragons, rampaging around all over the place. I think it's going to be super important.
I'm so excited for that in the story. Once they finally meet.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just going to be fantastic. All the Targaryen bastards, just...
All together.
So finally, the very last thing that I wanted to discuss was our personal opinion on the graphic novel. Whether or not we like the book, and then also whether or not we feel as though it's worth recommending to someone who hasn't or isn't going to read the books.
See, I like it because I like my pictures with words a lot.
Okay. And somehow you're a teacher. But okay.
Yes.
Fair enough.
I'm a teacher. But really, I come across much more intelligent as I'm talking about integrals and whatnot.
Oh, I have no doubt. That's true. None of this is very mathy.
This is mathematics teaching.
No, you are much more eloquent when it comes to speaking than I am. It's always been the case.
Well, yeah, but I'm not getting paid much for that. Mm-hmm. All of my $0 for this podcast.
All your $0 for this podcast.
But
no worries.
Honestly, I would recommend it for people that say just are terrified of the sheer 800-page whatever books.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is slightly intimidating for a lot of the...
if you aren't a book person.
Yeah, if you're not a book person, I would recommend it.
There are book people and then there are not book people. Mm-hmm. And not book people will never change their stripes.
Never.
I just have one small issue.
You have a small issue, okay.
100 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Around 100 pages of the book in there That means there's going to be 14 comic books for Dance of Dragons.
I'm sure the later books are just going to have to be... They won't be able to get away with 4. They'd have to do
I was going to
6,
say,
and they're going to have to do
for
10.
Dance of Dragons, you're going to have 10 or 12 of these.
My issue with that is that it's taken them...
Given, the amount of time...
over 2 years already,
happen.
And they haven't put out this third hardcover yet.
I suspect they're probably going to stop at the first book.
I think that they just don't have time yet. Or they'll have to hire new people.
Yeah.
They'll get 2 more people to do Clash of Kings, and they'll get 2 more people to do Storm of Swords. I don't think that these people have enough time left in their lives to write the rest of the books.
Write the rest of them, no.
Because if it takes them... I mean, issue 18 is supposed to come out this month or next month of the comic book, and then a couple months later they'll do the bound issue.
Yep.
So probably by my birthday, there'll be issue 3. But that's 2.5 years.
Is that a subtle hint?
No. I already have it on... I'm subscribed to it at GameZilla.
Oh, nice.
I'm already subscribed to the book. But, I mean, around then, so around sometime in March, we'll probably get the third hardcover. That's 2.5 years for 3 hardcover editions.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just an intense amount of time.
Which, let's be honest, is probably as long as it took George R. R. Martin to write them in the first place.
Yeah.
But the amount of art and the depth of art and, the writing is pretty easy. Because you're just editing and adapting the source. The art is taking a long time, but it's also incredibly detailed and very difficult to parse sometimes. Like, just how tough it would be to completely from scratch build all of these characters up visually, where all you've ever really had before is words on a page.
Plus, even with the volume stuff, they've been pretty fantastic in throwing
extra the making of stuff. Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, that in itself has got to take a lot of time to kind of throw together.
Oh yeah, I would think that there's at least, a couple months worth of work, like compiling the making of information.
See, they get better.
Mm-hmm.
I like Mog there.
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that there is a lot to be gained by reading these books, even as a book reader. You get a much different perspective on the storyline of the characters, but personally, my opinion is, if you had an Unsullied that was interested in the broader story, I wouldn't point them at that. Because they're going to get 20 pages in, and they're going to say, I don't give a fuck.
It's true.
Because
I can't even push them towards the book or the audiobooks.
Because they're 50 hours a piece anyway.
Yeah, the audiobooks are terrible.
Oh, they're awful. I listened to one on a car ride once. It's like, is that his version of the Imp? Oh my god.
Oh yeah, no, it's just unreal.
Like nails on a chalkboard.
But something like this, where I think it's more of a stepping stone.
Yes.
From the TV to the books. Because you get the broader story, but maybe you don't get as much intimate detail that you get from reading 804 pages of rather small text.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, compared to the Hunger Games,
which
is 300 pages of large text.
Yep.
I mean, that is... And people had a hard time...
Keep in mind, Hunger Games is technically written for preteens.
No, I know. Absolutely. But, I mean, there was a lot of cultural exposure for the Hunger Games last year when the movie came out. Mm-hmm. And then people started reading the book. And, I mean, people read the book, but people also complained about it. Like, having to read a book
Are you serious?
in order to understand the full story.
Mm-hmm.
This is a much more difficult undertaking to conceive of. I mean, it's huge.
The only thing I have problem, there's parts of this book that's just badass.
And it doesn't really get covered.
And it doesn't get covered. There's parts of some of the other books that are just badass. and still doesn't get covered.
No, that's fair. Like, absolutely.
There's parts that like I haven't read them in this. I don't know if it gets covered in this, but it could be badass.
Pretty much everything in the book gets at least a panel.
Yeah.
In there, because they literally, Tommy whatever his name is, or who is the editor?
Tommy Patterson's the art, adapted by Daniel Abram.
Daniel Abram basically took the book and parsed it down to its
Cole's notes.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's Cole's notes for Game of Thrones. But even in Cole's notes, you have to touch on every scene.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not it expands on those scenes as much as Martin does in the book, you still get a taste of all of the things. Like in here, they do. Danny goes to Khal Drogo's manse for the party to meet him, and Jorah Mormont is there. They don't do that in the show. He just rides up to Magister Illyrio's house, looks at this basically naked 10-year-old, and rides away.
Yeah.
And then the next time you see them, they're married.
Yeah, she's wearing gossamer, like see-through gossamer.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It's like that is the thing I think that they did the most poorly in the show was the Daenerys stuff in the first season, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is weird because in the first book, that's where she kind of shines. Like, she actually has growth.
I think she has growth all the way through to the end of Storm of Swords.
I was going to say,
all the way through to Marine.
Yeah, she's badass throughout all of her story arcs for the first 3 books.
Yeah,
it's just
I think I'm just
your hatred for her. Your hatred for her through book 5.
I think
and
it's
just
5
taints
is
it.
really
garbage.
does.
It's just I hate.
She becomes a Tully in book 5.
I hate book 5.
We've been through this as well.
Whiny. Who should I marry? Blah blah.
Blah blah blah. Who am I gonna marry?
Oh,
Can I just be Queen of Marine forever?
So, I'm gonna marry this guy and.
But I'm gonna sit with this guy.
I'm gonna elope with this
She's
guy.
also
No, I'm gonna get on a dragon and fly the fuck out of here.
She's also kind of
I don't.
I think
care,
she's
bitch.
just bi.
Yeah.
She likes the dong. She just also really likes Eerie, I think is her name, or Jikwi, whichever one. Her love handmaiden.
Yeah, her love handmaiden. Oh yeah, the one that she sleeps with and then just bangs randomly.
Just so much. But you know what? That's just an excuse for them to put a lesbian scene in the show now.
That's really true.
Yeah. But not for another 10 years, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not for 10 years, so don't worry about it.
Alright, so I think that we covered pretty much what I wanted to cover.
Okay.
Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss or bring up?
No, I think you kind of nailed all the nails right on the head.
Alright, well then how about we give you an opportunity to pimp? Do you want anything? Do you want to pimp anything?
I don't really pimp anything, no.
Well, she's a teacher. She
As-
She
as
can't
I'm-
really
as
pick
I'm a
things.
teacher.
As an aside, I think I'm going to pick up a copy. I actually haven't read these before.
Well, you can take that one home with you.
I'm going to pick up a copy of it. I'll read yours and then probably get my own.
Alright, well then how about we just go most basically, how about you give people your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle for the Twitter account I barely
Don't use?
Don't use.
Yeah, I really
Not
don't
really.
use. I think that marks me as old. I just don't understand the Twitter.
You're too old for Twitter?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't use Twitter, but I'm on it all the time.
I'm on it. I follow a ton of people, but it's mostly just so I can get updates from Kevin Smith.
I also follow the Kevin Smith and the @Nerdist. Those are the two accounts that I follow, like Maple Leaf sports bloggers, professional magicians.
I just find it incredibly irritating because I have children that speak in hashtags when I'm teaching.
Okay, I'm gonna apologize right now. I speak in hashtags.
Yes, but you don't shout it out in the middle of a discussion about math.
Hashtag at something.
Yeah.
No, that's wrong, sir. Hashtags and ats are two different things.
Oh.
Again, I don't.
Ats are addresses. Hashtags are linkable themes that
No,
tweets
I
go
understand.
through. Yeah, no, he doesn't.
But he doesn't really?
Well, he just said hashtag at someone.
I was just making noise.
Oh, that's fair.
I had one scream hashtag YOLO the other day.
Oh no, you just.
I would have slashed that.
Shoot those
bitch.
ones in the face.
I would have 10 hours like the Peter Dinklage slapping Joffrey. Yeah, right there. Just wha-bam.
Yeah.
Wabam.
Wha-bam.
Yeah, no,
That's 90s
I mean,
for you, too.
that's fair. As a math teacher, you must have really enjoyed Key and Peele a couple weeks ago when they did the math joke.
Yeah.
I wish I was high on pot and noose. Did you watch Key and Peele? Or no. No? Oh, that's a shame.
No.
No one's gonna get that joke, man.
Oh, no one watches Key and Peele?
I think the only
But-
one I've seen of
They're so
them
good.
is when they're doing the ridiculous college football names.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that, but that is the extent of my knowledge.
See, Key and Peele fill a Dave Chappelle-sized hole in my heart.
Yes.
Ever since he left, nothing's been the same, but Key and Peele, they kind of...
I'm really not about the humor.
No, well, you're a teacher, so
It's true.
they stripped that from you. Alright, so you never actually did give your Twitter handle.
My Twitter handle is @Tizeni.
Did you want to spell that for people?
Just say no.
It's @TIZZINI.
That's nice, and you even used Z properly.
Yeah,
That makes me feel so
obviously,
good.
I'm Canadian.
That's true, eh? I've heard
no Z's.
I've heard a lot of people, even in Canada, even in Fredericton, say World War Z.
World War Z,
I do
bitches.
call it that. I don't know why.
See? But that's weird, right?
It's really weird.
Yeah.
But no. That was my
Actually,
World
no,
War
now that I
graphic.
remember that, I think I hear,
World War
that's
Z.
all I hear is World War Z.
World War Z, yeah.
Yeah, that's all you hear from
Even in
anyone.
Canada.
And that's how they marketed it. So,
Yeah.
It was
like,
World War Z, yeah.
It'd be really weird to go up to someone like, yeah, did you see World War Z? And they'd be looking all crazy-eyed.
Oh, super crazy-eyed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, Clay, how about you? You got anything to pimp this week?
Pimp this week?
Yeah. Any shout-outs?
Shoutouts? No.
Okay. So, I don't really have anything to check out the blog. I gave the address earlier, castinthedarkness.wordpress.com. You can check out the YouTube channel if you're into the Game of Thrones card game. It's youtube.com/user/castinthedarkness. And you can follow the blog on Twitter at castinthedark. My personal Twitter handle is at Esther Nayfill. I'm not going to spell it for you. You can just find it on the website. And Clay?
I'm at Clayton Flint.
Which is way easier to spell
Mm-hmm.
than
No
Esther
funky names from what?
Dungeons and
Dungeons
Dragons?
Dragons in
Is that what yours is?
grade 9, maybe?
Grade 7 at least.
See, your name is at least as dorky as mine. So
My name is
better.
pretty damn dorky.
My name's Dork. It's my own.
My name is really easy because my name, I am the only Esther Nayfill on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
So any website I go and join, I always know I'm getting my username. I have
Same with
no trouble, ever. Like Clayton Flint, you're going to have some
I've actually met another Clayton Flint. There's a
Oh,
man in San Diego married to a Mandy Flint. They have like 7 children. Makes me really question my choices in life.
That's fair. I totally agree.
The guy's like an electrical engineer, has 7 kids. Builds motorcycles since part-time.
For you.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, and what have you done with life?
I burn shit for a living.
I mean, that's not so bad. All right, so I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Cast in the Darkness podcast. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Clay.
That's
That's Tiffy.
Tiffy. Keep your stick on the ice.